Ms. Caproni, I'm sure some of the letters are necessary. Are all of these NSLs necessary?
I'm sorry, are all of these?
Are all of them absolutely necessary for the protection of the national security?
Well, I believe they are. I don't think agents issue national security letters to get records that aren't relevant to their investigations and needed in order to either to close out a lead, for us to ascertain that the person does not pose a risk to the country, or in fact to disclose that the person does pose a risk.
Now, where is the oversight in all of this?
The oversight comes in a number of different ways. First off, this congressionally mandated series of Inspector General reports obviously provided a great deal of oversight. Subsequent to the March 07 report, we have mandated that there must be legal review of any NSL before it is issued. I think that's going to help.
Say that again.
Subsequent to the March 07 Inspector General report, as a matter of internal policy, FBI has mandated that there must be legal review of any NSL before it's issued.
And so the check and balance is within the same agency that's doing the issuing of the NSL? See, some of us think check and balance means you check with another branch of government. And we have another concept of check and balance. You check with your coworkers, and if your coworker says what you're doing is okay, then it's okay. That's not what some of us thought really was a check and balance.
If I could just continue on the other controls. And might I also say that I think the lawyers in the Bureau, many of whom work directly for me, take their responsibility relative to reviewing national security letters very seriously. And if the material that's laid out in the document supporting the NSL doesn't support the issuance of an NSL, the lawyer won't sign off on it.
And these are all people who are hired by the same Attorney General. I mean, it's all within the same agency.
That's correct.
So when that person says, this is what I want, all of his employees are checking and balancing themselves.
Again, the director of the FBI has made it very clear that he wants to achieve the mission of the FBI, but to achieve it lawfully. So the mission of the employees of the FBI is to achieve their goals consistent with the law.
But what happens if he decides that he wants to do a little political shenanigans? What happens then? Where are the checks and balances?
There is absolutely no evidence that this director of the FBI would ever engage in political shenanigans.
Okay, well, the attorney.
If I could get to the third.
Well, let me just say this: that as part of when I listen to this, we're also trying to get an answer out of the Department of Justice as to whether or not U.S. attorneys were fired because they didn't indict Democrats in time to affect the next election. And so we haven't had a credible response to that. So sometimes we suspect that there may be some political shenanigans going on, and we're just asking where the checks and balances are.
Well, again, I would say Mr. Fine works for the Department of Justice too, and it seems to me he has provided very vigorous oversight. So I think merely because your paycheck comes from the Department of Justice does not mean that you're not capable or desirous of obeying the law and providing the appropriate legal advice to your client. If I could just, I can't answer for the Department of Justice and why they're not providing you documents. That's not within the scope of my responsibilities. But the third element of oversight that I think it's important for this committee to recognize is, again, subsequent to the March 07 report and subsequent to Congress establishing a National Security Division within the Department of Justice, the National Security Division has set up an oversight group within the National Security Division. Those attorneys go out to field offices and do what are called national security reviews. They have access to everything in the file. They can go through it from soup to nuts.
And this is the same agency, though. They're employed by the same agency.
Well, they're Department of Justice attorneys.
Okay. What happened with this? What did the Supreme Court decide and decide it's unconstitutional in September 2007?
I'm sorry, say again?
Excuse me, the district court in 2007. What did the court strike down, and what's the status of those?
Is that the Southern District case?
Yes,
I don't know the date.
Southern District of New York, yes.
That case is pending on appeal. I believe it has been fully briefed in the Second Circuit, but it might not quite be fully briefed. So I would anticipate arguments in the next few months. That case did, as Chairman Nadler pointed out, hold that there was, even after the Patriot Act Reauthorization Act, which changed the rules on disclosure or non-disclosure of national security letters by the recipients, Judge Marrero found nonetheless that the new statute continues to be unconstitutional under the First Amendment. That's what's pending on appeal, is whether in fact the structure that the Congress passed in the Patriot Reauthorization Act is constitutional under the First Amendment. There's also an issue about whether the gag provisions of that bill are severable. That is, would Congress prefer there to be no national security statute if there's not a non-disclosure requirement, or can we sever the non-disclosure requirement as being unconstitutional and keep the balance of the statute? Those are the two primary issues that are pending on appeal before the Second Circuit.
Gentlemen's time is